Let me now consolidate for you everything that we have covered so far as a single on a page description of the journey and the considerations that apply. I've got 7 steps here, which is the how do the project disciplines fit together, and I'm going to take a swift jet fighter speed high level journey through these 7 steps, interlinking all of the component parts that we've talked about in the past. Now, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to start the conversation, or I'm going to hold the conversation with what appears to be the description of how this all works. If we're on the project journey, where at the beginning we can see clearly all the way to the end. The only thing that's going to change if we're building a teleport system or we're building the internet experience, climbing a mountain, finding there's a new crest ahead of us every time we have solved the last problem or climbed the last hill. The only thing that changes is that the time horizon between cycles of planning gets shorter. So in the ideal situation or in the situation of the ideal clear road, I might do 1 set of planning right at the beginning, and in the most convoluted environment I might have 1 set of direction making at the beginning, followed by 5 or 6 or 10 or 100 sets of 10-day planning, and at some point I have another direction setting conversation. So the first thing is that direction setting conversation. Somebody with sufficient political power and a light bulb moment has a view of an endpoint that says, wow, it would be good if I had a bicycle. And that's establishing a vision from a sponsor and a set of benefit entry tests or earned benefit tests, an expression of I need a control system that says when you've achieved this, we've got into operational steady state benefits flowing in the future. So benefit entry test and earned benefits. And when they can start to articulate that, and then they might need some help with it, we can start to understand who we need involved in the organisation as the other elements, the other contributors to those business level questions of we've got an idea here, is it worth pursuing? So I've got a growing stakeholder community who are now assessing the question, what's the business focus? What's the alignment? Why would I do this? How does it stack up versus other initiatives? And if it has sufficient momentum at this stage, we have the approval to move forwards to what's probably planning. More stakeholders become involved, the technical folk become involved to start looking at what's the specification of the end result that we're supposed to create here. So we're getting a refined view of what the destination is. We've got more stakeholders involved, and what they start to identify is what good looks like and what the component products are that meet the business goal. And some phrases that are common here are either product backlog or product breakdown structure. And what we need is that initial bit of yellow activity, which was the quality specification of what the acceptance criteria are. So we have product and its quality criteria, or what does good look like at the end of the project, and that will then lead us through to that, and how would you create that, and what would good look like in terms of the activities or the way in which you're going to apply the standards. So now we've got the project scope forming. This might be 2-speed scope. It might be I've got this vision at the end point, and that's very unresolved for detail, and I've got a short-term description, which is partial solution, and that's very high detail. But now I know the activity. The activity is not 100% quality and it's not 100% action. It's the pair of them integrated together. But activity on its own is not controllable or manageable. We need to know the dependency between those activities, what can come before what. And in very many cases of planning, that is sufficient to be able to frame what the team needs in order to be able to move forwards. But you may wish to put it into more formal structures like Gantt charts and project budget cash flows. And so we're building a control system here of the tasks and their dependencies, and we may need to include budgets and resourcing and risk management. But when we have our controls and the who will do what when to reach what intent, even if that's only for the next 10 days, we are able to say, right, we're ready to move on. And ready to move on builds the component parts. Either we acquire them or do we develop them ourselves, and we create those component parts. And our approach might be to develop and acquire 100% of what we need and then assemble and integrate it. Or it might be to acquire or develop less than 100%, perhaps even only 1%. But that is work surrounded by quality activity, and the quality activity generates the we have achieved information that is the measurement that allows us to compare with an intent. And when we've achieved what we intended, we are progressing as we expected. And when we have achieved more or less than was intended, then we have variances that we might need to take some remedial action against. As we develop and acquire things, we assemble and integrate them, in which case we can again test the integration. So when we develop and acquire, the bottom red circle, bubble, we are developing and acquiring the individual component parts. So we can tell whether they work individually. When we assemble them into subsystems and systems, we are able to tell whether or not our system has the qualities that we need it to have. So I might be building a car and I can test that the engine works. It's very hard to test whether the brakes work at that level. But when I assemble everything together sufficiently to be able to start driving the car, I can then test that it accelerates and decelerates and stops as a system at the level that I want. And when I start to be able to demonstrate that I have something that works functionally to the level wanted by the customer, I'm able to deliver it. And I may be delivering incrementally, or I may be delivering the whole thing in one go. When I give it to the customer, they will inspect my quality audit trail and maybe perform their own tests, and they will accept it, and handover will occur, and then benefits start to be delivered. And it may be that I have multiple handovers to do before we are complete and we can swap from changing the organisation to running the organisation. So now we have been through the project journey. It's your challenge to take this lot into usage back in your organisation and to apply it to what you have as challenges back at work.